Welcome again to the Brokest Guy in the Room. I'm Chris Kushner.
And I'm Ravi Walsh.
Today our topic of discussion is blessings or burdens, kind of the way that we perceive things and how they end up being. I'll start off by just explaining the inspiration for today's episode. I recently got a call from a friend of mine, and his son has been not well, and he's been really struggling with how to process watching his son deal with it in the diagnostic process. And the other day he calls me and he's actually in the hospital, and the diagnosis finally came in, and it's type 1 diabetes. And he was devastated with this news. It was kind of a really interesting moment for me because, me as a person who lives with Crohn's disease, which is also a non-curable thing, it's, about managing it. And over time, I've been fortunate enough to really see that my Crohn's disease is a huge blessing because it forces upon me a discipline that I wouldn't otherwise have. I know that about myself. I know that if I had a choice, I'd probably make a bad choice. So I've been blessed to not have that option. And so I got a chance to tell my friend about this and explain to him that, look, for your son, this is an awesome opportunity because it's going to force him to live a disciplined life. While his friends are going to be out doing stupid things, he's not going to have that luxury, but it's going to breed success. And I said, I promise you down the road, you'll look back at this and you'll see a blessing there. I said, I bet you it brings you close together with his mother as well. They, in the backstory, hadn't been so close and been sort of the opposite of that. And he says, we have been together in the same room for the past 3 days.
Yeah.
And I said, there you go, man. There you go. It's amazing how quickly, how you perceive and how you're looking at something, your perspective on something can shift it from a burden to a blessing. So That's what we want to talk about today.
And I encountered the exact same thing. It was time to leave to see you, Chris, come here and do this podcast, and ending up a coaching call, and client says, I can't see you anymore. And high-paying client was really enjoying the work, and will admit, it pulled the rug out from underneath me. And I write to Chris and I say, be honest, I'm on my back. This has got me questioning. Should we reschedule? And Chris writes back and says, let's see how free you are in an hour. And I'm like, ooh, nice. So I start doing inquiry, and I find out, here I am again, back at my intention that what I want more than anything in this world is my spiritual connection. That has to be my priority. It is top way of living life, and here I am. It's like, okay, well then let's practice. What are you going for here? So it totally opened me up. I do inquiry, and I use the work of Byron Katie, and after a 30-minute work session, I could totally see how this is the best thing for this client. It's exactly where this person needs to be. It's exactly where I need to be. And I open my phone afterwards, and there's a new email from someone I used to work with who says, man, do I need to see you.
One door closes, another opens. Ravi, why don't you back up and explain a little bit about Byron Katie's philosophy and just sort of make that relevant to anyone who doesn't know the name.
Yep. So Byron Katie is a spiritual teacher, but she's really not. She's just her seminal book is called Loving What Is. And, I spent 9 days studying with this woman, basically living with her, and I came into realizations about how my thoughts, my beliefs are completely creating what I see outside in the world. I mean, we're not supposed to really talk about this, but what the hell, I'll do that anyway. No rules, right? She does a day called the Day of Terror, where she really gets you into a space where you connect with the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to you and let you really go into that. So we got about 100 people in this room, and it's an enormous, ballroom in a hotel in Connecticut. And I found something. It was intense, but after about 20 minutes of processing, I'm clean. And I look around the room, and there's a woman not 10 feet away from me who is rocking on the ground, screaming her head off. No, 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 no. who's supposed to be working with her just looks up at Katie and says, "Help!" And Katie is an older woman. She gets up, she straightens out her pleated skirt, and she walks down, and she touches the woman on the floor on the shoulder and says, "Sweetheart, sweetheart, come back, come back." And the woman opens her eyes and goes, "Katie, it was so real. It was just so real." And then you know what happened, Chris? The alarm system in the hotel went off. Sprinklers. And I look at Katie and she just puts her hands up in the air and I'm like, it's so clear what these beliefs can do to us. How they're really the ghost in the machine. They're in the back. They're on the hard drive of our brain, of our nervous system. And they're running the show. Especially when shit hits the fan. They come right to the surface. This woman, she had been hurt as a child, but here it is. She's now in her 50s. This happened 40 years ago, but you wouldn't know it by watching her on the floor. It was like somebody was raping her right then and there. And what Katie came to discover was, if you do inquiry into these beliefs, if you really dive into looking at what you're believing is happening, and she has a series of questions. There are 4 simple questions and there's sub-questions. Is it true? Is what you're believing right now is going on in your life, is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true? How do you react when you believe it's true? And who or what would you be right now without this thought? 4 very simple questions, but they crack the nut open for you to see just how powerful our stuff is. And how you talked about, the synchronicity, or what you and I know of as tracking, of your friends saying, "Oh my God, I just spent the last 3 days with her." These become our life when you really unpack these beliefs. These show up all the time. These synchronicities, coincidences, guidance, whatever you want to call it. Christians call it Godcidences. But it does really help to unpack these beliefs, because they really are the ghosts in the machine. They're running our perceptions, and they don't need to.
It's funny how her approach to that, and to kind of encapsulate you in the thing that you're most afraid of. I've also had this, I've sort of embraced this theory in life that sort of all good things in life come from discomfort. I really, truly believe that with all of my heart. I was having a discussion with my mother earlier today, actually, and it was kind of an interesting discussion, because my mother and I, in a lot of ways, are polar opposites. I got her nurturing side, but my adventurous side, it couldn't be further from, my mother certainly kind of lives in a capsule of fear. And I think it's relevant today because so many people live paralyzed by this fear. Yeah. And I was trying to explain to my mom what it's like for me, because it's absent. It's not a choice. I don't consider myself a brave person, but that fear is absent. That discomfort is exciting to me, and so I run towards it because I want to experience what comes next. And a lot of people sort of don't, and they'll let those things be barriers. And then you flip that, and I find that all the bad things come from comfort. And when I get comfort, I get complacent. When I get complacent, I get unappreciative. I take things for granted. And so it's become this sort of juggle, The other day I talked about how everything we do either builds positive or negative momentum, and it's similar to that, because anymore I look at these opportunities of discomfort as, a chance to grow, right? It's an opportunity to grow. I mean, I can't remember where it came from, but at one point somebody hit me with this metaphor about how human beings being like lobsters, and how lobsters, in order to really grow, they'll put themselves in a state so vulnerable that they give up all their protection, right? They got to shed their exoskeleton. Right. And so why would they do that? Why would they risk their life? But it's because it's literally the only way to grow. Right. You kind of have to crack the skin. And I think a lot of us right now, the world right now, is in this interesting period where, we're certainly in the discomfort, aren't we? You know, we're feeling it. Everybody's feeling it from a different way. And so now we start looking at, all right, well, what's going to come next? You know, I mean, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder right now where the motives are and where the intentions are, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's ever more important, I think now, particularly when the world's chaotic, that you know, that those of us who are mindful, that we do know what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish on a daily basis.
So how do you not run from fear in everyday life, like relationships? When you're with someone, you know, it's one thing to run off a mountain or jump out of an airplane, which, you know, I've done twice. And, well, that's not true. The first time I was pushed. The second time I could, you know, that experience of jumping out of an airplane was exactly what, as I look back on it, you know, the process of coming into that fear. At 5,000 feet, they tell you, you know, and that's pretty high when you're 5,000 feet in a tin can, which is what this plane is, you know. They tell you, you know, halfway there. You're like, halfway there? You know, the Finger Lakes look like little streams already.
Oh my gosh.
And when you get to 10,000 feet, they turn to you and they say, now look, this is how this is going to go. This is your last chance. You're a yes or you're a no. I need to see a thumbs up, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put you in a queue. You're going to get in a line. And that door is going to open, and the first person is going to be pushed out. And then I am going to push you out, because there's somebody on your back. You do not jump. You are pushed. And the whole way, you know, the most exciting part of the fall, which is the free fall, the first time I did it, I had no idea. I was in shock. I was screaming and I was in shock. I was in terror. And then you feel yourself, you know, coming up, and it's like, shit, I wasn't even present. I wasn't present at all.
I missed it.
This is one of the reasons I did it again, and I'm going to do it again. Because I want to look at what it feels like when you get to 5,000 feet. Because I think most of us can relate to that. When you see your partner or something changing in your relationship, it hasn't fully hit yet, but you know you're headed there. You got 5,000 more feet of this shit that you're going to have to deal with. And that's when they say, you know, between now and then, you got to make a choice. And you know, Chris, you were talking about, you know, you just go for it. Because what's going to happen at 10,000 feet if you don't want to go?
You're going to get pushed.
Well, no, you're not. Because you say, I'm not going. And they go, okay, get out of line. Go to the back of the plane where there's no windows. You're just in the dark. And you're going to sit back there while everybody else gets pushed. And you're just going to cycle down with the plane and land on the ground. And you just pay $200 or $300 to basically have that happen. Who wants that? But I'm thinking about relationships, and I'm wondering, you know, how do you, when you get to 5,000 feet in the relationship, when you get to something coming up that you see is happening with your partner, your spouse, you know you don't like it, but you want it to just go away. So you avoid it. You avoid it. That's what most people I find do. That's what I do. Until it hits you. You're about to be pushed. And you made a choice. How do you find in relationships that you get through that? You don't run. You don't move to the back of the plane and just sit it out.
Absolute and total honesty with yourself. You know, you'll hear me say a lot. You always got to choose between the options that are on the table, not the ones that you wish were. And what you're describing is deferment, and deferment is just a mechanism of trying to create an option that isn't there. You know, in reality, when something bothers you, you can either do something about it or you can accept it. Right? That's it. That's all we got. Any of these relationships and any, you know, I mean, think of how many people come to an impasse with romance. You know, there's a remarkable, there's a podcast I heard where a woman describes the 9 relationships that exist in a marriage, you know, and she's talking about everything from the financier, the lover, the co-parent, you know, and she describes all these different scenarios. And the way she phrased it hit me and made me really put a smile on her face, made me laugh, because she's like, for the people who are lucky enough to find the one-stop shop, like, hats off to you. But don't throw shame on the rest of us who aren't so lucky, and she, in her life, she's polyamorous, and the whole idea is the separation of these various relationships. And so this is, an idea of comes to the point where you're talking about where, something happens and you're like, oh man, I'm no longer good with that. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, like you said, they'll pretend that they are. They'll pretend that it's fine, Right. And unfortunately, that's, as we all know, right? Like the worst thing you can do when something's bothering you is swallow it. Because it's going to come back up, and when it does, it's going to be the Exorcist style puking. You're just going to be all over the place because it's now a huge problem.
Unless you become like a cow or a deer. You got to chew on it, the cud. You got to break it down even further and swallow it into another stomach. So I love what you said. You either accept or, what was it, defer?
You can change.
Or change.
You either do something about it or you can accept it.
So what I'm finding is, as I accept things, like I can imagine somebody who really accepted, okay, at 5,000 feet in this plane, I made a choice. I am not going to jump out of an airplane today. Okay, it can be embarrassing. It can be shaming even to fly back. It's just you and the pilot all by yourselves. But I can imagine if you really accepted that, if you really said, this was what I am doing, this is what I'm choosing, that could be an incredible experience in your life. And what the spiritual path awakens us to is the power of acceptance. It's the entire path of AA and all 12-step programs. The first thing is, to accept your powerlessness and then lead from there. Because there is a force outside of your ego. And that's, how I live my life as much as I possibly can. But I like hanging out with you because you challenge me to see, well, what about the other side? What about the side of take action? Bold action in the moment. And that's great.
I don't know, and I look at life, unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, the one thing I've had to come to accept about myself is that I get bored easy. I don't like constants in my life. In fact, they are the worst thing that can possibly happen. Hence, comfort, right? Comfort is not my friend. I don't like it. I like to be uncomfortable. I like to be hungry. I like to be chasing. God help me when I catch whatever the hell I'm chasing, because I lose interest immediately. What the hell was I wasting my time chasing that for? Right. And so what do I do with that? Right? I've had to embrace certain things. In business, I realized, so I'm a startup guy. Cool. So I found, my path is in inspiring others. I'd love to kind of give the spark that, hopefully they'll take and run with. But for me, that's got to be their thing, right? And so that helps me then identify who are the people that I can work well with, right? Yeah. Because it's not, if you want me to hold your hand, I'm probably going to smack you. It's going to make me resent our relationship. Right. Because what I have to offer is that spark, right? I want to show people and have them go. But it's funny when you offer your gift to somebody who can't make use of it. Because then you look at what happened, and that's how a lot of toxic relationships are born. And it's through, this is a pure scenario of the path to hell is paved in good intentions, because both parties mean the best. Both parties intend the best. The student wants to learn. The teacher wants to teach. The student can learn what the teacher teaches. The teacher gets frustrated. Student gets hopeless and gives up. Teacher's failed at his job. Students failed at life. How do we avoid these scenarios? And so this is where it becomes ever important to really, here's your intention and who you work with and who your life and who you choose to have relationships with. It's because those relationships, if not right, if those pairings aren't there, you can have the best of intentions, and it can be somebody you admire, somebody you love, and by nature of trying to force a square into a round peg, it just causes friction and it breaks.
Right. Well, that's one scenario. One of the scenarios that I see again and again is, though, with absolute commitment to acceptance. right, is to loving what is. That no matter what is happening, to absolutely love it. Because it's not necessarily true, is it, like with our kids? You know? It's not necessarily true that we're willing to put up with shit from our kids. We're willing to tolerate, to be patient, to accept a lot from our kids. That you're right, in our relationships, our intimate relationships, we would never think twice. Business relationship, no, it's just not who I am.
Or vice versa. In some cases, you see the opposite. You see people hold them to the highest standard. They don't take anything from them.
Their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't take anything. Well, you and I have both encountered our kids, taking space from us. And I know that if my son picked up the phone and called me and said, I want to talk to you, or I need you.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah. No matter what he did.
Yeah.
No matter what he did. And there is that acceptance, and it I think that's, these relationship shifts that I've had to go through, or I've chosen to go through, I don't know how it works, have made me who I am.
Yeah.
I was working with a client, a student who's in my certification program the other day. I worked with this guy for 6 months, and I just wanted him, he's ready to get a client. And I'm like, okay, go here, go meet these people. Nope, not doing it. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. 2 weeks later, somebody called me. Out of the blue, somebody called him, wanted to work with him. And he's starting to communicate, how did the first session go and everything. Everything that I thought in the last 6 months that he didn't pick up, he did pick up. It was coming through. He used the tools. This person was...
Had to be activated.
And it was like, wow, look at you. And today he writes and he's like, what's this? Okay, it was a day of, hallelujah. And I think that's a lot of the way it is with kids. I think I learned this the most with birth. I got to be present at all three of my kids' birth. And my first partner, she was very nervous about giving birth. And we were with a midwife who had birthed thousands of kids. And at some point, my partner is just truly starting to flip out. And the midwife says, you want to get up and walk around? Yeah, that's what I want to do. All right, this is a good idea. This is going to help, isn't it? The walking is going to move the baby. Things are going to start to happen because I'm walking. And she goes, oh no, it's contractions coming. And she's just like, okay, all right, well, you want to sit on the toilet? Yeah, that's a great idea, because that's going to open everything up. Everything's going to relax. That makes sense, I get that. Okay. And then she grabs her hand, she says, Ellie, what happens if the baby falls into the toilet? And she says, sweetheart, that baby's going to come and that baby's going to come. I'm just giving you stuff to do. I mean, if we think about it all as a birth, and that your body knows how to do this, staying with it, like you told your friend today, that's the fun. I think of that as the fun part, is facing sides of yourself that tell you, I want to run. I don't want to face this. I know how to deal with this. No. How can you do it differently? How can you change?
Mm-hmm. It's going to hurt, but you want it to. I think talking about relationships, it's funny how often we can be afraid for it not to be right. I mean, I think about how many relationships end badly, and the notion that a relationship should end badly, or that it has to, or that that's the only way to end things. I think that's one thing, honestly, that a lot of people struggle with, is that, they reach that point where one partner or the other recognizes. I know in the past when I dealt with it, I've always struggled with sort of a guilt over my own financial capability. For whatever reason, aside from my professional path being the brokest guy in the room, always seeming to be that way, in my personal life, that has never been the case. In my personal life, I have found usually that it's a lopsided equation. Usually I have more. Usually I feel more capable. Usually than whatever scenario. The close friends that I've always had were always people who kind of like had a need there, and I guess the relevance of that was that it put me in situations where I would have bad relationships that would get prolonged because I could recognize the person's need for me to survive. And love turns to guilt seamlessly. And you lie to yourself. You lie to yourself saying that, it's love, when in reality, all it is that you feel like you're leaving a person behind. And truth be told, you know damn well you'd be much happier somewhere else. The hard pill to swallow is that so would they. Yeah. So would they. And this is where, again, burdens and blessings, right? Like, and perceptions in everyday life. I think one of the things that I would encourage, and that I often, this is advice I give, and it's hard advice to hear, it's hard advice to take. But I'm usually one that will push people to say, have that discussion. Is this right? People are so afraid to talk about the things that will solve their problems, I've noticed. And it's amazing. It's because we do, for some reason, I think most human beings don't want to solve. They want to wallow. They're so afraid of the solution that it causes them to accept the purgatory. And a lot of relationships end up in this toxic state because both parties, despite them being incredibly unhappy, can't cope with being the one to end it. Right? When in reality, fast forward 5-10 years, whichever one did it, the other one will be thanking them. Yeah. More often than not, if it truly is something that can't be worked on. Now, again, in the spirit of you can either accept it or do something about it, right? Here's the other part, is that if you do choose to stay, and there's nothing wrong with that, do some damn work, right? It's amazing. Don't just sit there, we're freaking miserable. So go get some therapy. Go talk to somebody. Go try something different. People are so willing and so eager to practice insanity, and by that I mean doing the same thing and expecting a different result, that it's remarkable sometimes. Yeah. So I guess for anybody who has any sort of takeaway from this, I can tell you that the big takeaway I got from surviving these kinds of relationships is that it's okay for them not to be right, and you don't have to end as enemies. You can be friends. You can have discussions and you can talk about it and you can set the stage, but be willing to tell the truth to yourself and to your partner.
Well, and I'm a spiritual life coach, so I would say end to God. Mm-hmm. And I think that's become my first step is to have that, sit down and have that conversation with God. Turn my ego and what it thinks is going on, over to God. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Lucifer. You ever seen that on Netflix?
Only a couple episodes,
yeah.
Isn't it?
So as you get into it, it's kind of wonky in the beginning, but it gets interesting as you get into the first 2 or 3 seasons. And there's a scene where Lucifer has to go back to hell. Lucifer is the devil, and he's come to Los Angeles, and he don't want to go back to hell. And God actually put Lucifer in hell. And Lucifer's pissed at God for putting him in hell. He didn't want that job. He didn't ask for that job. He thinks he was put there, because, God was jealous, blah, 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 all this shit, that he's dealing with in his ego. And God never steps in and says, anything. But he has all these little events happen that start to crack him out of his block of beliefs. And one of them is he has to go back to hell to get somebody. And he comes upon this guy who he put in hell quite a while ago. And he walks into a room, and the door is open to the room. And the guy is trying to fix something that he did in his life over and over and over again. And he hurt somebody really bad, and he keeps trying to fix it. And he ends up hurting this person, and he keeps trying to fix it. And Lucifer's just standing there, and the guy turns to him and he says, "When are you going to let me out of hell?" And Lucifer says, "The door's open." And the guy's like, "What?" The funny thing is, Lucifer goes into another room and he's doing the same thing. And he comes to the realization, oh, the door is open. It's always been open. And then he gets pulled back out of hell. So I think in the last number of years, Chris, it's really come to me to make my relationship with the divine the prime factor of my day. I mean, every day, as much as I possibly can. And it's huge. It's a big risk. I grew up with a very, successful father, and thinking, having lots of money is important. And I was driven. I was ruthless on myself and other people in my life to be productive and to make money and have everything. But it just wasn't who I really was. Who I really am is a person who loves the spiritual path, who loves my connection with the divine. And that's what's shown me, the door is always open. But I think we have to get right with whatever we think is holding all this together. Because it can't be my ego. There's been so many things. I mean, like that story you told. He told you, I've been in the room with her for 3 days. And you just got through telling him it's going to improve his relationship with his wife. His ex-wife. I mean, to me, is amazing. And I felt the pause when you shared that story, that he was quiet. That's it. That's the divine experience right there. Whether we remember it or not, okay. Whether we drop it and move on and move back into our craziness, fine. But it's awesome that guy shared that with you.
The power of pause is pretty incredible. And I guess I'll probably all I got for today, where I'll close out. When I met Ravi, I was struggling particularly bad with alcoholism, and that's sort of been, professionally, I own a liquor store. Drinking too much alcohol has become a problem that came with it. I never used to drink, but in any case, when I met Ravi, this was a constant thing. Every day, I'm drinking. It's how I go to sleep. And Ravi said to me one day, next time you're sitting out in front of a liquor store and you're getting ready to go, buy some alcohol, just pause for a second. Just take maybe 30 seconds and just think about what you're doing. And if you decide after 30 seconds you want the alcohol, fine, go for it. But just think about it, would you? And I think that's what the world needs, more pause right now. I think the problem is you see so many people that are forgetting to think about what they are doing, and whether it's you're about to go home and scream at your spouse, whether it's you're about to quit your job, whether it's, you're angry at your best friend, whatever the heck it is, I would encourage you to always remember that you have the opportunity to pause and do it right. So often than not, I think every person would agree that every time that you just react, usually there's regret that comes with it. Right. So instill the power of pause and reap the benefits. We all have the opportunity to not act out of spite. We have the opportunity to move towards our own benefit and to build that positive momentum I talk about every day. And so, just make sure you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Take the time to pause and make sure that your intentions and your actions are actually aligned. Yeah. As long as they are, there will always be fruit to reap. I promise.
One of my teachers, Dr. Carolyn Mace, said, "This is the age of the addict." We are in the age of the addict. And so her primary piece is, you're here to work out, addictions. And look around you. I mean, we're addicted to everything. Phones and online. It's substances.
Sugar, porn, coffee, sex, whatever.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And we're not alone. I mean, it's everybody's got it. So that piece about, pausing has really just been totally instrumental in changing my day and realizing that that's why I'm here. That I can go in and yell at my kid or yell at my partner. I can pause. And what's even harder, Chris? It's not yelling at my partner. It's not pausing. It's getting the message, you can go back in there and change this right now. And it's like, no, I can't do that. No, I won't do that. I will not do that. I can't be that. No, you can. Just do it. And that's what I find the pause allows me to do, is break this cycle that it's the last stage of it, right? That's the hardest, but the best place to go is to go in there and go, hey, I was a real asshole. What I just did was not called for. I am so sorry. I did
See,
that.
you just brought me, that's the funniest part about it, is that the pause forces itself on you, right? This is a moment that we have to take. Unfortunately, usually we've done it after we've burned the house down. And then we pause with our tail tucked firmly between our legs and our head down between our knees going, shit, I burned the house down. God damn it. I can't believe I just did that. Yeah, take the pause beforehand. When you can, when you think of it, and that's where, because it really is, it's not even a question of being something that we got to do. It's just, give yourself the advantage of doing it before you've done the damage when you can. If you've already done the damage, it's never too late to go back and fix it.
Yeah. What was it like when you decided, okay, I'm going to get a beer. I'm going to do it. I sat here in the car. I'm going in.
Same every time. I blew it.
Well, for me, when I pause and I see that I'm making the choice I'm making, there's the thrill is not really there. Whatever it is, it's not there. Because there's something about the hiding. There's something about saying, that God, the divine, or whatever it is not with you. Like, am I supposed to turn around now while you do this? I'm sorry, I have eyes everywhere. I can't really do that, but no. But I've had experiences in my life where I remember being drunk as a skunk down at the block in Baltimore, Maryland, walking with a bunch of guys into these strip joints, and I'm getting ready to walk. They walk in, and I'm getting ready to walk in, and this guy comes up to me. He doesn't know my name. My given name is Patrick. He's Irish. He's the bouncer at the door, and he stops me and says, "Oh no, Patty, this one's not for you. Hit the road." What the F? Listen, my fudge. He's like, "Nope, you don't go in here." I think about that. What would have happened, had I gone in there? So I call all those events now Godsidents. That I think something happens in the pause. I think we let that awareness come in and say, okay, I know you're here with me, and I'm choosing to do this, and it's what I'm going to do. And it's like, fine. But denying that the light isn't with us, the divine doesn't stand side by
Let's
side.
be clear. You can call it whatever. I mean, for background, I'm not a person of faith. I was raised Catholic, and at some point I decided that that description of the energy Ravi's talking about didn't fit my perception of it, I guess. I call it the universe. Ravi calls it God. Whatever you listening call it, I hope you all take it from the same place, that we're talking about the thing that is greater than man. I think most of us can acknowledge at least that, right? There's something there. There's something to it.
The thing that's always there, even when you tell yourself, it's not there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, where should I go? I can't go anywhere. It's a real comical relationship that I now have with it. It's just, well, I can pretend to turn around and not watch what you're doing, but I got eyes on my butt, so I'm kind of stuck, Ravi. It's like, all right, fine. It is with us, and we know that, and I don't think, I go back to church with my mom, and I hear the priest saying stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this is messed up. I mean, I don't know why this stuff is still being propagated, but whatever. But I don't see it that way anymore. I see this, if it's a choice that I have, then I have to believe the divine already knows that choice is there. And why would it judge it? Why would it judge it? You know who's really taught me a lot about this? I got a friend. He's one of my dearest, closest friends now, Richard Moore, who is in South Carolina State Penitentiary on death row. And Richard has a real high incidence he's going to die. This man is one of the most holy, centered human beings on the planet. He admits what he did, he accepts it, and he has moved on. And he believes if South Carolina cannot move on, okay, then that must be God's will. But he is not walking around. He's had 30 some years in a cell. He is not waiting for anybody to forgive his ass or change him. He knows it's between him and God. But the thing that Richard shows me again and again is he knows God was there. He was there when he did and made the choice he made. He did not know that the night that it happened, but he was there. And he knows that now, and that's acceptable. I think that's that acceptance piece that we started off talking about. That's at the core of all of this, is whatever it is we've done, whatever we do, whatever we think, we can no longer hide from ourselves and say, we don't know that, the divine doesn't know that, the universe, whatever you call it. Yes, it does. And it is accepting it. Maybe it's freaking celebrating it. Because it's part of life. It's part of being here. As is murder, everything. We don't have to agree with it. But I don't think we should kid ourselves and say it's not unacceptable. It's just happening too much. It happens. It is.
Ultimate growth from ultimate sacrifice.
Ultimate growth, ultimate sacrifice.
Well, until the next time, we hope to leave you guys with the notion that every burden in your life can be a blessing by simply shifting your perception.
Yeah. And remember, the cracks, the breaks, that's where the light gets in. That's why we want to be the brokest guy in the room. Because the cracks are where the light gets in, not out, in. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.